through the people who interpret the Constitution. So the first line of questions is important because it's going to go to your general judicial philosophy. You heard me say that the next president will have 4 octogenarians on the Supreme Court in their first term. So the first question I want to go to is a 2-part question. What is your overarching judicial philosophy, and what kind of judges are you looking to appoint, not to just the high court, but to the intermediate courts?
Well, I think that all federal judges have to be the same application really matters, which is you want to appoint people that have intellectual acumen, that have a strong intellectual basis, that have integrity, that can persuade, because this is typically, at the appellate court level at least, is a process of persuading people towards your opinion, and then have a consistent judicial philosophy that is not it's to interpret the Constitution in the confines of the Constitution, not to go beyond that, not to view the judiciary as a legislative body. I actually think of the 3 branches of government, the judiciary is a hugely important one, but it's got to be the most humble as well. It has to be totally respectful of the Constitution and the laws, so that there's certainty. The rule of law exists in this country, and it's an envy. We're the envy of many places in the world because we don't have uncertainty. The minute we create uncertainty, as we're living through today, it makes it harder for people to be successful. So, as it relates to the Supreme Court, Alan, there's one other criteria that would be hugely important, which is a consistent record. You can't do this based on someone's opinion. The general argument, I think, now is, well, get someone who's totally unknown, that doesn't have a record, so that the opponents won't try to crush him, or her, try to demonize them and make it hard for them to get picked. That, I don't think, is the appropriate way to go. I think you need to have someone that has a consistent, experienced record that then you can say, when they get to the bench, they'll maintain that consistency, which means you, as a president, you've got to fight for them. You got to have their back all the way through and use all the powers of the presidency to make sure that confirmation takes place.
So with a consistent record, are you saying that you would want to see them have been a former judge? Is that important to you?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's where we're at because of the demonization that exists in politics today. Frankly, it's people, this idea that you don't have a record is a better way to go. I don't think it is anymore. I think you just have to say that this is the highest priority a president has because it has the longest lasting impact, right? So you could pick someone who has extraordinary experience. I don't think it should be a litmus test, but my guess is, my inclination would be to have someone that has been in the federal court system, that has a clear, consistent, conservative record.
So right now I'm a judicial candidate, and you're President Jeb Bush, and you're interviewing me for a potential post either on the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals. What are some questions you would want to know my answers to before you would be willing to put me on the board?
Well, I would do the same that I did when I was governor. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but you can kind of ask questions that give you an insight into people's thinking. I would ask questions like, name a ruling that you had as a federal judge, or a Supreme Court ruling that where your views were different than the actual ruling. In other words, find places where people really had to distinguish between their job as a judge, which is to strictly interpret the Constitution, that might be in conflict with their own personal views. That's the place where you find the consistency of judicial philosophy. I actually ask people things like, I ask them questions to give them a chance to say what their views were politically. I didn't want them to do that. I challenged them maybe not been fair, but it was a trap, to have them say what they thought I wanted to hear. And the right kind of judge would be respectful of the question, but would be clear that their job isn't to have a personal opinion, it is to strictly interpret the law. I actually ask people what book they're reading. And if they were reading a book that sent a clear signal that it would be a book I like, that stuff is foolish. So, I mean, someone asked, I asked that question, and they said, I just finished reading Scalia's book. And I'm thinking, no, you didn't. You just wanted me to hear that. I mean, there's a way to challenge this so that people really, you get to the heart of why people want to serve and what their consistent record is.
Okay.